more than 200 animators and programmers. A multi-million-dollar production. Over 2 years in the making. And a cast of thousands. They said it couldn't be done in a major motion picture. They were right. Final Fantasy VII.
PlayStation.
So E3 just happened. Originally this week I was planning on doing my thoughts on each conference like everyone else does, but then this got announced. See, originally I was going to make a video about what a Final Fantasy VII Remake could be like. Then they went and made it a real thing. So after extensive rewriting, here's the new video. Final Fantasy VII is a remake on the scale I don't think we've ever seen in video game history. Never mind the change of technology since it's been released, the goal of this remake is to basically do something that the trailers originally said was impossible. Even though this isn't a movie, in a way I feel like it's become something much bigger than that. The number of cutscenes that need to be animated and the voice actors hired is staggering, but that isn't what makes the scale so insane. This is definitely being advertised as holding up to the level of quality that the Final Fantasy VII spin-offs and movie have had. But the movie and the spin-off games were on a much smaller scale than the full Final Fantasy VII game. I honestly don't know how Square Enix is planning on pulling it off. But one thing's for sure, the primary concern of a lot of people right now is authenticity. Final Fantasy VII characters have been depicted very differently after the original game. And as such, people are calling for this remake to be as close to the original as possible. But honestly, I don't think that's practical. A lot of the dialogue in Final Fantasy VII has this weird indistinctness, for lack of a better word. There are so many weird things you see, especially if you talk to NPCs. But I don't think authenticity is something you have to worry about in this remake. Square Enix takes a lot of care with their remakes. Taking this and turning it into this. The Final Fantasy IV DS remake is the best example. Modern updates were added where needed, and the dialogue was retranslated and fleshed out, but they still took care to preserve the things they knew the fans cared about. This is highlighted in the hidden developers room, where for example you can talk to a translator who assures the player that the Spoony Bard line was kept in and is in fact correct. Square Enix has a history of putting effort into their remakes, and I don't think their biggest one yet will be any different. That said, there will be pressure from all sides to change things. I can practically see the clickbaity articles now. Sexist slap fight between Tifa and Scarlet sets women back 100 years. This cross-dressing scene is transphobic. Is Wutai racist? In fact, we've already seen shades of this when people try to kick up dust over the infamous Honeybee Manor scene. People often try to play off this scene as non-consensual. Or worse. When the game has Cloud acquiring a ticket for this weird brothel type thing, and then after a misunderstanding makes no effort to correct the situation. The reason why Cloud most likely goes along with it is because he wants to save Tifa, but it doesn't change the fact that he went along with it. On the less outraged side of things, I've also been seeing a lot of people asking for the game to be modernized, often to a ludicrous degree. If you follow me on Twitter, you might have already seen this lovely quote about how picking things from menus is dated and Final Fantasy VII needs to change that. It really shouldn't. Final Fantasy VII should be tweaked, updated, and patched where needed. But there's a reason why the game did as well as it did, and that should be preserved. Changing it will only upset people, and there's no guarantee it will attract new fans. That said, there are things that can be done to meet halfway. This might be a bit of a rendering problem, but I think having a mode that puts the camera angle at the position it would have been in the original Final Fantasy VII would be a great and inexpensive way to win over Final Fantasy VII purists. And some scenes could definitely stand to be expanded on, such as things involving Zack, now that Crisis Core has been made to tell his story. and while I don't think things should be changed too much, I don't see any problem with adding new things. Whether it's extra cutscenes, quests, items, or more options for the Gold Saucer date. I've already seen people talking about adding the fusion sword from Advent Children as a special bonus, either as a post-game reward or a late-game side quest. I personally think this could be really cool, especially if it lets you use the Advent Children version of Omnislash. Something that people tend to gloss over when talking about Final Fantasy VII is the poorly implemented minigames. This is something I don't think many people would take issue with overhauling, or even removing in some cases, like that dumb button pressing minigame at the beginning. At the very least, some of the more abrupt minigames could do with better tutorials, since they're very unclear on what exactly is expected of you. Additionally, the bigger minigames like the Fort Condor strategy game or the Golden Saucer minigames can finally transcend their early 3D limitations, and hopefully become much less finicky. Something else I don't think too many people would object to is the removal of random encounters. I think a good replacement system would be the one seen in Final Fantasy XIII too, where encounters are still random, but you can avoid them if you want, plus if you attack them on the field you get a preemptive strike. Since quite frankly I don't think there are many gamers left with patience for random encounters outside of legacy titles. Final Fantasy VII is definitely going to be a complicated game to remake. There's a lot to preserve and a lot that needs fixing, and the line between that will probably get blurry at times. How many people will be upset if the W item trick is removed? What about this guy are sick? The sheer breadth of the content that needs to be covered is why I have absolutely no problem being excited for this game, despite the fact that we have nothing to go on so far. What we are basically getting is an old school RPG with the budget of a modern Final Fantasy. That's something that has never been attempted. Of course, it could all go horribly wrong, but in a way, that would be just as interesting to see. Thanks for watching. If you've got something to say, you can leave a positive or an FF9 remake comment below. Subscribe if you want, we've got more Final Fantasy content planned. And hey, if you like this video, check out Caspasaurus' Final Fantasy XII video. That needs a remake too. If you want to see a never-ending stream of scenes from Final Fantasy VII that will look silly in HD, you can follow me on Twitter at HatTalkTalk. And with that, see you next time.
Next time on Game Shucks.
I'll turn darkness into hallowed light.
I may swoon.
Jacked OP, please no.
Do those fists contain your spirit?
Marching bands howling.
Hey, women who dress like men.